Hello everybody, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Star Rail. In today's video, we're chatting Zenless Zone Zero, and we're actually going to be checking out one of my favorite content creators that I've seen so far. I think his stuff is just really good quality, Jello Zone Zero. But I saw he has this video, how bad will power creep be in Zenless Zone Zero? I've watched a little bit of it, and I said, no, you know what? I want to do a whole video on this, giving my thoughts as well. And rather than just doing my own video by myself, I said, let's watch this together and basically give my takes on top of it and sort of build on it and expound and whatnot. You can find the original video from Jello Zone Zero, of course, linked in the description. So I encourage you to watch that if you would prefer to watch it and not listen to me on top of it. And of course, subscribe as well to his channel. Give him a thumbs up. It's really, really good stuff. So let's check it out. Let's see. I mean, power creep. I mean, I'm coming from Honkai Star Rail. Power creep is definitely a thing. Doesn't mean that old characters are useless, but it does mean that newer characters are ever so slightly better. And it's certainly a concern that you might invest a lot of resources into one character only to have a new character be released that sort of kind of replaces them, right? For most intents and purposes. So let's go.
Today I want to talk about the future of power creep in Zenless Zone Zero. Will the units you get today, next patch, and the patch after still be good a year, 2 years down the line? Welcome to Jello Zone Zero, where we build and
I'll tell you right now, predicting 2 years, like that is an eternity in the mobile game sense. I think that's impossible, but yeah, we'll see. 1 year, we can make some guesses as to when. It's very, very, very much going to be guesswork though. Like if we look at Honkai Star Rail again, for example, I think about 6 months in, roughly, there was a second endgame mode in Pure Fiction, which is totally different. And now about another 6 or so months in, about a year into the game's lifespan, just a bit over, Apocalyptic Shadow, another entirely new endgame mode, which again has very different mechanics. So it's tough to predict, even months ahead. So it'll be fun.
Test every single character to help you decide who you want to summon for and build. So the first thing to note is that Hoyo can do whatever the heck they want. If Hoyo decides that they want power creep, then they'll make power creep. If they decide that they want to make just a bunch of different units that don't do exactly what the other units do, then that could very well happen as well. It really is completely up to Hoyo's discretion what they want to do. So right now, the game...
Again, like I said, there's a big incentive for them to create at least a little bit of power creep, right? When they release, let's say they come out 6 months from now and they release a new attack unit, right? Unless that new attack unit is doing something cool and flashy and they're doing big damage, like people are just sitting there going, well, unless you're really bored of Ellen, which might be the case, you know, you're really bored of whichever, of Zhu Yuan or whoever you pull early game, unless you're pulling just for pure novelty, I think they'll throw the extra spice on it of newer characters just being better. It's expected. It's how gacha games work, so that's totally fine. Yeah.
Isn't solved. First clears of Shiyu defense are finally starting to come out. All the speculation here, you're going to have to take with a grain of salt. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows exactly what's going to happen in the future. But I still think by looking at the kits and then looking at the future kits that aren't officially revealed, but we kind of know what they're going to do anyways, I think we can make some educated guesses. And B.
Yeah, so he's going to be speculating a bit in this video. I've seen the speculation I've seen in the comments I've seen have been like totally consistent in terms of the new upcoming characters. So at this point, I am honestly presuming that, you know, this must be based on fairly substantial leaks at this point. It's not unprecedented. Those characters are pretty close to 1.1 to releasing. So, because I did see he does talk about them in this video, it seems fairly set in stone right now. So I think we can make some pretty good speculation based off of it. But yeah, as he said, I think this is a really important point. It's one of the reasons why he is one of my favorite channels. As he says, the game is not solved. There's still tons of stuff that's unknown. Like, we are not at the end game yet with end game gear and top level agents, etc. Fighting top levels of Shiyu defense. Like, we're not there yet. There's still so much more to come with this game. So yeah, people saying like this is definitely how it is and how it's going to be, for me, that's off-putting for sure. I prefer the more open-minded stuff like this.
These power crept instantly because we've got Xingyi coming out. And I'm going to say power crept as defined as there's another unit that does basically the same thing, but does it better. I know there's...
Yeah, exactly. I think that's fair. There can be loads of definitions of power creep. Again, power creep it's creeping, right? It's not surging. We talk about that in Raid Shadow Legends a bit, which is the main game I cover. That it's not power creep anymore. It's power surge, where the new units are so much better at the moment that they are completely destroying the old ones. Tends to be power creep in these games. I think that's certainly true in Honkai Star Rail for the most part as well. I think power creep is what we'd expect in Zenless Zone Zero, which is a slow improvement of characters. It's not going to be total replacements. That being said, he's saying that so Xing Yi, who's the upcoming, I think it's fairly likely as well that she's speculated to be a stun agent. I mean, she's clearly electric. We see her in the story, we see her in the cutscenes. She's doing electric stuff. So she's going to be electric stun. Anby is electric stun. We really would expect the regular A rank characters to be power crept fairly quickly, I'd say, with better S rank versions. May not be exactly the same. Like, I'm curious, will Xing Yi literally be just Anby but better? It's a bit disappointing if that's the case. We'd rather see some extra spins on it, some different things, some different synergies. I'm sure there will be. I'm excited to see what it is. But yeah, I think it's fair that, yeah, Anby is definitely gonna be she's your beginner stun character. She's basic. She does stuns. That's about it. So yeah, she's being power crept pretty quick.
The other definition of power crept, where another unit does it better and the character can't clear the endgame content, or just the character can't clear the endgame content.
I think that's
I
unlikely.
highly doubt that any of the units will get to the point where they can't clear the endgame content. Hoyoverse generally has the power ceiling pretty low, and you can always just over-invest into the units or use them with other cracked units to be able to clear the endgame. So I'm going to go with just direct comparisons to other units. And Anby, yeah, she's power crept instantly. Billy.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true with other Hoyo games, right? It can be very, very difficult, ridiculously so, to clear some units, but when like the particular endgame mode, that rotation of it suits a particular character, you can make them work, even in sort of bizarre teams. Billy, yeah, power crept instantly, physical damage, cunning hairs. I mean, Nakamata has physical damage, cunning hairs, but a higher rank than him. So he was the definition of power crept instantly, really.
Also power crept instantly. Anby has an electro stun. If you guys don't know, Xing Yi is another electro stun. And being an electro stun, so we have to look at something, right? We got to look at elements. There are 5 elements in the game, which is not a lot. I definitely expect elements. I think they learned from Genshin, and they're going to do a new element every year or 2 years, because I definitely think they can easily introduce new elements into this game. And
yeah, I can totally see that happening. Like, apparently there was a wind element in the beta, which yeah, I think actually what's her name? I can't think of her name right now, but the super cool fox chick with the samurai, the katana, right? The samurai sword, the really badass chick. Can't remember her name, but I think she was wind element, and then they changed her to ice element then after that. But yeah, that to me is pretty interesting. So I almost wonder, will they bring that back? You know, will they delay that? I can't believe I can't think of her name, but will they delay her because she's such a popular character? She's so badass. She really seems to me kind of like the Zenless version of Raiden Mei, basically. Will they delay her a bit and maybe release her alongside a whole new element, and that could be her thing? Or will she do something different? Will she like ignore elemental weaknesses with maybe her EX special, her ultimate or something? Like, she's gonna, I feel like she could easily do something crazy. Like, if she comes out and she's just ice DPS, which I think she was in the most recent closed beta test she was featured in, I think that'd be pretty disappointing, honestly, for Ellen. Like, you have to do something very different to Ellen to make that not feel really bad. It's sort of my take on it. Anyway, I'm babbling. Let's go.
I think it's going to be important to have the elements against the end game. The way that the way that we know the mechanics to work right now are that elemental checks do matter. So having units from each element, not necessarily a DPS of every element, but maybe either a DPS or a stun agent, someone that spends a decent amount of field time on each element, will probably be important. So
one thing I could easily see happening as well is you could have multiple element checks within the same fight. So you might have, let's say, even a single boss, you might be like, okay, he gets an electric shield. You need to do electric damage to break it. Oh, but now he can also get a physical shield, and you like alternate between them. So you might be really incentivized to have electric and physical damage dealers in the same team. Or again, it gives you a reason to use supports. Like I think Sakaku is a great example. Sakaku, yeah, she as a support, she buffs your team with an attack buff, and that's great. That's nice, right? And she can also boost your damage and your ice damage and whatnot. But she also does a lot of just upfront ice damage herself, especially with her mindscapes. What's the point of that? Seems quite weird. But again, what if there are these multi-elemental checks within the fight? So let's say I'm running her with Zhu Yuan, because we know that Zhu Yuan can function with any support unit. So we could have Zhu Yuan with basically the Ellen team of Lycon and Sukaku. Why do we do that? Well, what if there's both an ether damage check, but also an ice damage check in the same thing? So we could use Sukaku to break the ice shield, Zhu Yuan to do our damage most of the time otherwise, right? So I think that's definitely a direction they could go. That's fairly well indicated, I think, by character designs in the game. And this isn't even imagining what they might do that we haven't foreseen at all. That's just something totally new that they'll cook up,
So I'm going to say that a stun electro probably will last for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to say within 1 year. And this is, again, not fact. This is my prediction, right? This is not...
Oh, I love it. I love it. Powercraft within 1 year. Yeah. That's even quite a long time frame. Over 1 year, 2+ years. Yeah, I think Xingyi. So electric. So I mean, we'll see what unique twist she has to her kit. Uh, I mean, let's say if they do like a Honkai race of like a new character every, let's round it up a bit. Let's be a bit more conservative. Let's say a new character every month, right? So that's 12 new characters in a year. There's only 5 roles. So you'd be getting maybe 2 to 3 characters in a role in a year. I think it'd be fairly, yeah. I think it would take at least a year, probably, before they would do another electric stun. Though again, like people are speculating, we could see another ice attack to compete directly with Ellen. So it's not unreasonable. But I think the expectation would be that okay, if there were three stun agents per year, it's pretty unlikely they do 2 of them being electric. So Xingyi should be pretty safe for a good while as that. I think that's fairly safe to say. But of course, then, the other stun agents might just be better, and you might be very incentivized to run those teams instead of Xingyi. If they're just much better, it might be like, well, I don't want to run an electric team or a Xingyi-based team. I'd much, much, much rather bring in, I don't know, Bob, the stun god, instead, whenever possible, because you are only running like 2 stun agents typically at most. I mean, that could change as well, right? But for now, I'd say 2 anomaly is the most you'd run. I don't think you'd run 2 attack, 2 stun, 2. You can run 2 support sometimes. You can't run 2 defense physically right now. There's only 1. But, doubling up on roles outside of anomaly is pretty rare.
Not fact. This is my prediction, and it'll be really interesting to go back and see how this ages. So yeah, Qingyi.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good bet. I think that, like I said, that newer stun agents coming out later will. I think it's pretty likely she'll be power crapped as like the first limited stun. I think it's pretty likely she's gonna be power crapped. But yeah, I think it could be something similar to like Locha in Honkai Star Rail, just being like really super good for a very long time, but then eventually being replaced by units that do similar thing better. Sort of my guess.
Being an electro stun agent, probably not going to have any other electro stun agents, but there is the thing that it could be PubSec. Maybe the whole PubSec gets replaced, but I don't know. That's my prediction. Nicole, I think that she'll last for a while. So if we look at her cinemas, especially, increases crit rate by 15% at her cinema 6, gives her energy field increased range. By the way, guys, do you know if this turns off the Mindscape or if it just hides the thing, like each of these little toggles? I thought someone told me it actually turned off the.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm pretty sure. So, oh yeah, the toggles. I think they just changed the picture. I don't think they actually turn off the effect for
Mindscape. But now, based on how when 4 turns on and 1 turns off, that is just aesthetic. It's not actually have to do with the Mindscape. But anyways, sure. Buffing all squad ether damage by 25%. That's a pretty darn big buff. By reducing the target defense by up to 40%. You do have to switch in to reapply the buff, but also she increases crit rate by 15%. This seems like a pretty good buff for me. I feel like we don't get a dedicated ether support that lasts that power creeps that super soon. Eventually, yes. Super soon, I doubt it. Yeah,
I mean, even again within 1 year, again with 2 to 3 characters, 2 to 3, like expecting 2 to 3 supports this year, there's a decent chance it could be one of them could be ether. It is, especially because we already have an S rank with Rena that's electric. So they might be less incentivized to do an electric support. So that one, I think that one's a bit sketchier. I do think Nicole's great. I mean, Nicole being super hyped up is like the hot thing at the moment in the Zenless YouTube scene from what I've seen. I think she's a bit overhyped in that sense. I find it difficult to say that one of the supports is much better than the others. Honestly, all of the supports right now seem pretty darn similar and fit into their niche. My one concern with Nicole is that Zhu Yuan, we already know she's been changed. She does not need another ether agent. She can go with any support agent to unlock her passive. So I think it's very easy to replace Nicole and Zhu Yuan's team. Now, Nicole's obviously super good for her, but I'm just imagining how powerful a limited S rank support could be. Like, they could be just bananas. Like, think again about Honkai Star Rail. Think about how bananas like Ron May or Robin are compared to like Asta or Ting Yun. Like, they're just another level. So yeah, like that's sort of a concern for me. I do think Nicole's super good. I think she's a fantastic support. She's just a core support, bust for your team, grouping the enemies. She's just very, very good at what she does. She's a brilliant typical support. Like I mentioned Sukaku already. Sukaku's a bit more weird because Sukaku has that more active damaging role with her frosted banner. But Yeah, I think it's fairly unlikely that Nicole is still top tier in 1 year. Like, given that, like I said, given I'd be expecting 2 to 3 limited support agents in the next year, I think it's very unlikely that they are not better than Nicole, substantially so. I would be shocked. I would be super shocked if like, we're over a year, like a year and a half from now, and it's like, man, just never needed to pull any of those limited supports, man. Nicole just blows them all out of the water. It's just not happening. So
I think she'll be
skeptical
okay
on
for a
that
while.
one.
Nekomata, I think she gets power crept within 1 year. Being a DPS
Yeah.
and not being a crazy impressive DPS, I think she's solid, but being a physical DPS, we've already got Jane coming. You might even be able to argue she's power crept instantly with Jane Doe coming. Being an anomaly physical character, you're probably and like I think Nekomata will probably get better before she get worse because we don't have a physical damage support yet. So it could be we get a physical damage support first, and then Billy, Nekomata, and Corrin all get better. Corrin, by the way, is power crept instantly, also being a physical DPS.
Yeah,
but I see
very
Nekomata
much
getting
so.
power crept eventually with.
Yeah, Corrin, agreed. Corrin's already instantly power crept. I mean, again, Corrin fits in quite well to like the Ellen team. Like if you're going into a stage that's ice resistant, you're kind of screwed. You could stick it in their physical weak. You could stick Corrin in with like Heion and Sukaku. Is it amazing? No, but it works. There you go. You got your damage either because she's part of their faction, so that works okay. But yeah, she's pretty instantly power crept for sure. Nekomata, interesting. So he's talking about Jane Doe as physical anomaly. Does that power? That's an interesting question. Do anomaly characters power creep attack characters and vice versa, or do they work a bit differently? I think with Nekomata specifically, she scales really well with her additional ability with applying physical anomaly. Now, I think you can obviously run her with Piper or presumably with Jane Doe. It could actually be quite a strong team. You would probably prefer, ultimately in the long term, I think you said it very well, that she's actually probably going to get better before she gets worse. A physical support or a physical stun would fit really well at Nekomata. I mean, that would probably be her ideal team. Yeah, physical anomaly character goes really well with her. That's true. But I think she would prefer just your typical, like Ellen, like Zhu Yuan. I think she really prefers just your standard, straightforward attack, stun, support setup. And she'd love for those to be physical so she can get as many assault procs as possible and really crank her EX skill super high with her passives and whatnot. So yeah, I she'll definitely be power crept within a year. I think any of these generic attack agents are going to be the first things to be power crept. There's no surprise. I mean, like, honestly, like Ellen already power creeps. Like Ellen's just better in Zhu Yuan. Like there you go. If you've got both of those characters, you know, you're running Ellen on one team, Zhu Yuan on the other. Like the only reason you'd switch to a Nekomata is if those elements are resisted and you can't run them properly, and like the enemy's physical weak. It's a fairly big gap. I think this is an appropriate tier for her though. Yeah, I think it's appropriate.
Physical DPS that's limited, but she'll obviously fare better than these two, so that's at least good. Kaleda, I also see her getting power crept within 1 year.
Yeah, definitely.
Although I think she is better than I initially thought because there was like a bug, and then the bug was fixed, to my understanding, where she didn't do enough days, and now she's a bit better. That's at least my understanding. But I still think that we'll get a new stun agent, especially since I think.
Yeah, I think new stun agents are, like I said, very likely. I think she's very generic as well. Like I think that like Lycon really stands out in contrast, where Lycon brings so much for the ice team, and boosting the stun multiplier is insane as well. So boost the stun multiplier. Now he does tons of days as well, which is expected for any stun agent. Tons of days, but boost the stun multiplier and lowers their ice resistance. Those two things are insane, and especially for other ice teams. So I could easily see, well, I'm sure we'll come to Lycon, but I think Lycon would probably easily come down. I'd be moving Nicole to hard to say, and I put Lycon down here for being like, okay, I think Lycon will be replaced in other teams by like Xing Yi and other limited stun agents, but I think he holds very strong in the ice team for a long time. He's doing so much. Like for a stun agent to be better than Lycon in your ice team, like my goodness, they have to be so insanely powerful. It's just crazy. That'd be my thoughts. I don't feel the same for Kaleda. I think Kaleda seems quite generic. Decent damage, good days, fire. But I think she really could easily be power crept, especially because she also gets more powerful with Ben. And Ben is also fairly questionable as well. So I think as you start getting more S-rank agents and limited agents, I think that Ben falls off, which makes Kaleda fall off. I don't see her holding on very long.
I think the Fire Nation is probably coming in 1.2, and probably one of them will be a stun agent. I expect the same for Soldier 11. I think the what are they called? The squad that Lucy and Piper.
Yeah, it's I think it's more likely to be defense. I think from what we've seen from the teasers, right, the official trailer, that there's like a chick from the Sons of Caledon think there's a chick with like a shield and and like a sword or something. And then there's a girl, I think a girl with like a flamethrower. So you'd be thinking like defense and anomaly, fire, perhaps. But they could also be different things. They could also be physical. That could be cool. Like a physical defense agent would be pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, we'll see with Kalita, but yeah, I think she gets power. I think Soldier 11 very similarly. She's solid damage dealer. She's good, but she's just basic damage. She just does damage. It's good, but I mean, I think Ellen is already a step ahead. Zhu Yuan's already a step ahead. I think any fire attack limited will certainly power creeper. I think arguably even fire, again, it's the same question with Nekomata. Does a fire anomaly limited S rank power creeper? Possibly so. So yeah, I think she's in a rough spot. And certainly, again, you are competing not only against agents in your own element, but for a lot of the situations, you know, where it's neutral damage, you're competing against just agents in general. So that's definitely a rough spot to be in. Yeah.
From it seems like to me that based on the trailer they're coming in 1.2, and we'll probably have replacement characters for these two, like better fire characters. Again,
yeah, like if it does end up being a fire defense and a fire anomaly, it's not direct power creep because they're stun and attack. They're a bit different, but if that is the case, they could. Yeah, it's enough for me to call it power creep.
Where these characters will be completely garbage and completely obsolete.
We'll see.
They might have good value, you know, to use if there's a new stun character to use them with Soldier 11, that will buff your Soldier 11. If there's a new DPS character to use them with your Kalita, that will buff your Kalita team. Right? So it's not like you have to get all the upgrades for every character. But the other thing I see for these characters is that they're very simple. Like Soldier 11 doesn't have any crazy game-breaking tech. She just does damage and it's fire damage.
Very
Kalita,
simple.
She just does stun. She doesn't have any game-breaking stuff. It's Lycan that I think has the chance of lasting longer because he's a character that, again, Hoyo could just mess with this, but he's a character that also gives extra stuff on top of just stunning. He also gives like ice defense down, and that's pretty cool. Get ice defense, pretty cool. Anyways, I see that lasting a bit longer than the other stand characters. I don't know if I want to put him in hard to say or it'll last a while. I think it'll last a while. I think he'll be the better ice character for a while. Anton, power crept eventually for sure.
Yeah, definitely agreed with Lycon. Yeah, he's definitely lasted a while, right? He's so unique for the ice team. Again, I think he will be easily enough replaced by limited characters and non-ice teams, but for the ice team, dude's insane. Yeah, Anton, power crept eventually. Yeah, he's sort of like the only electric attack right now, but you could easily see any electric attacks or take him over for sure. Yeah, I love Anton. I'm building him, but that dude, he's not going to last for long. I'm appreciating him. I'm appreciating my bro while I can, right?
100%. Any DPS character is getting power crept, especially if they're a 4-star. I'll still be building him. I'll still be using him. He'll be the first character that I try and clear on the other side of Ellen for Shield defense, but no, this boy's getting power crept. I think Bear is kind of, I'm going to put him in hard to say. He's the only defense character right now. Apparently, he might be able to be stunned at C6.
Nobody uses Ben. Nobody uses him.
If he can replace your stun agent at C6, that's kind of good and also be defensive. But maybe we'll just get other broken defense characters that will power creep him right away. I feel like Ben is kind of like a question.
That's sort of the issue right now. Now, this is where the game, I think, it easily changed because, like, right now, do you need a defense character? The overwhelming feeling is no. Now, that is partly because we're sort of progressing through the game. So our gear is bad, our characters are bad, etc. So actually doing enough damage to kill stuff on time is tough. Now, when we get further into the game, like when you reach a point, like we could easily reach a point where you can kill stuff on time fairly well, so long as you just don't die or don't get like stun locked or whatever. And at that point, defense characters, they could actually become really good, right? If they're protecting you, if they're upping your anti-interrupt level, if they're giving you shields, whatever, doing good days, maybe good damage at the same time, other stuff. Defense is definitely the role right now because it's only Ben, and like I said, no one's playing Ben. It's very much forgotten. This is a role that could grow hugely in the future. And again, it's like, it reminds me of Apocalyptic Shadow in Honkai Star Rail. It came out again like over a year into the game, but that's come out, and like, my goodness, like the amount of incoming damage on your team is so much higher than other game modes. Whereas that same Pure Fiction, you can often get away with no sustains, no protection at all. In Apocalyptic Shadow, like your sustain is really, really stretched to the limit. So yeah, we could see a similar thing with defense in this game. I am curious how it's gonna go. Yeah, I'm very curious how it's gonna go. But I could see defense as well being super popular, you know, where it's like, man, especially, let's be real, not all of us are god gamers. And hey, if I can throw a defense character in there and just like mash away and ignore what the enemy is doing, some of you will be like, that sounds terrible. But let's be real, there's a lot of people out there who are like, yo, I can like just I get max rewards from this stuff, and I don't have to be good. I don't have to dodge. I can mess up and still do it because this defense agent's insane. Yeah. Now, my issue with Ben is number one. I don't think Ben is that crazy. We'll see. I mean, Ben has some high damage multipliers. He's interesting. I'm definitely interested. I feel like Ben is very much that unknown, that untapped potential, because nobody's playing Ben. What can Ben do? I think we don't really know. But it seems right now fairly unlikely that you'd be running multiple defense units. And I think like any limited defense unit could easily replace him, and especially if we are speculating that the chick from Sons of Caledon with the shield is a fire defense. Like, Ben's days are limited. That's why I'm sort of more hoping she's physical defense or something like that. Could be pretty cool and would fit in with, you know, Piper and Lucy pretty well. Like Piper more so the physical Sons of Caledon is what I'm hoping. We'll see. But yeah, Ben, we'll see.
Smart. Like maybe he's just bad right now, so he's already.
I put him in power crept eventually. He's not power crept instantly because he is the only defense, but within a year, yeah.
I'm gonna put him here because
100%.
I think he's kind of just not that great already. But maybe everyone's sleeping on him. We don't quite understand how he works.
Yes,
that's why I kind of want to put him in hard to say. But I think based on just like his performance right now not being that great, I'm gonna put him here. Also, being part of Belobog is like a bit unfortunate because there's probably not gonna be Belobog new characters for a while, so their potential for.
Well, that's true. We haven't seen any new ones teased, right? All the Belobog are always same with Cunning Hares. There's no new Cunning Hares teased. We've got other new factions coming that are teased. Nothing for those. So those older factions are definitely could be a while before there's anything new.
Low. Grace. This character is definitely going in hard to say because it seems like it's kind of like there's kind of like two sides of Grace right now in the community. One side says Grace kind of beans actually, and the other side is like Grace kind of cracked actually. So
okay. I was like, does beans mean good or bad? Is that good or is it bad? It's bad apparently. I haven't seen people saying Grace is bad. I've only really seen people saying Grace is good. I have Grace. Grace is good. She's definitely a bit misunderstood as a character. I feel she's all about anomaly. Now she's very good at applying anomaly. Like she stacks up anomaly very quickly. She does a really powerful shock as well. So she's very potent. I think she has a lot of potential moving forwards as well to combo well with. I'm actually gonna say she could last for over. Hard to say. Ooh, it's tricky. It's tricky because like anomaly character. We haven't touched on anomaly characters much yet, but would you ever run 2 attack agents in a team? Right now, seems crazy. There's no way you'd run 2 attack agents in a team. It's just bad team building, pretty much. 2 anomaly characters in the team, though, now we're cooking. That can be a disorder team, and disorder's super powerful, right? Apply shock anomaly with Grace, blow it up with Piper. Boom, disorder, huge damage, really strong. So we could easily see lots of different limited, lots of even future agents from other attributes that are anomaly, and Grace could synergize with them very powerfully so, and could be strong. Now that being said, you would expect the limited anomalies to be more powerful, so Grace would be more a backup. Let's say hypothetically that the fire flamethrower Sons of Caledon chick is anomaly, and Jane Doe is fire anomaly, Jane Doe is physical anomaly. Okay, well, if they're both limited agents, S rank, it's probably going to be the ideal disorder team. Like, presuming they've got faction, maybe they can't synergize with each other. Maybe it doesn't work, but let's say it does. That's probably quite ideal. Grace would be more of a backup. Like, okay, if the enemy is resistant to physical, okay, swap out Jane Doe, Grace can come in. If they're resistant to fire, okay, flamethrower chick sits out, Grace and Jane Doe go in. So there's definitely some potential there. Now, they could do an ice anomaly, non-ice. They could do a lightning anomaly agent because shock is definitely one of the more notable anomalies. Like especially Rena synergizes with it, especially damage over time. I think it's the quintessential almost disorder anomaly, shock. So yeah, I could absolutely see another limited electric anomaly character coming. And if that does happen, then yeah, Grace gets power crept fairly hard for sure. So yes, it's one to see. I definitely would not see her lasting a long time. I think the limited anomalies will take over. But then, that being said, if you want to build 2 anomaly teams, 2 disorder teams, I should say, 2 disorder, man, you need 4 anomaly characters. It's a lot. It's a lot. So like I believe right now it is looking like double anomaly plus defense. Like I think it's looking like Grace, Jane Doe, and Seth could be a really core team because Seth's looking like electric defense. So you've got 2 electric with Grace and Seth. You've got 2 criminal investigation squad with Jane Doe and Seth, it looks like. So there you go. You've got yourself a double anomaly defense character team. And then you've got the more standard team we talked about earlier, which is like attack, stun, support. That's sort of all 5 roles covered. Interesting. Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I know that Anton Grace Rena, or Anton Anby Rena, or Anton Anby Grace, maybe? I don't know. I feel like we'll have a better idea when Jing Yi comes out and we can test the stuff.
I do Anton and BJ Grace at the moment because I don't have Arena. It's decent. It's decent. It is a little clunky, though. I'm definitely looking forward to building a Disorder team with Grace instead, for sure.
Grace, I guess the idea is that Grace is an anomaly character that doesn't do anything special with anomaly, and we're going to talk about the difference between her and the
doesn't do anything special. I mean, that's true. She doesn't do anything special, but she's very good at it, though. Very, very good. I think she's got a bit more longevity compared to, for sure, than that. Yeah, I think this is a fair tier for her because, yeah, definitely compared to Nekomata or Soldier 11, I think they're much more easily replaced. Now I see her portrait. It's Miyabi. As soon as I saw the picture, I'm like, Miyabi. I know that. That's funny. But yeah, Grace, I think, has more longevity because you're much more likely to run double anomaly. Much more than double attack. I think it could be cool for a future character. That could be a cool spin on them. An attack character that wants another attack character. Hey, there you go. That could be probably a once-off, like one attack character that does it. Could be a fun little quirk to them.
The other anomaly characters later, but she also wants to be played with Disorder. I think if you're a Star Rail player, Grace is kind of like Black Swan, where she's like a dot character, and then Jane Doe is going to be kind of like the Kafka, where she's kind of the anomaly enabler, and maybe they're going to be played together for the Disorder stuff. So I think Grace kind of hard to say. It just depends on how hard they lean into an anomaly. I'm going to probably lean towards being power creep, but I'm going to say there for Ellen. If we follow the beta where it leads, Miyabi is literally just better Ellen. She has better crowd control. They're the same element. I highly doubt they'll release a new unit that's the same. I hope they rework Miyabi. I hope that they make a wind type and they add in a wind type, because Miyabi was originally wind, then went to ice. So Sokaku also originally wind, then went to ice. But I think Sokaku and Miyabi, they'll probably go together. So it kind of feels like Ellen's going to be power crept. But even though she'll be power crept, she's already on a level where she's quite a bit stronger than the other DPSs right now. Like, she'll probably go the way of Zila. Looking at Hoyo versus past games, what did
I would put Ellen in hard to say. I put it in hard to say. I think Ellen is looking like the top tier ice DPS. Now you could have an ice anomaly character come out. Seems a bit more niche. Like the ice anomaly ups your crit damage. Shatter makes them take more crit damage. So it's not as inherently leaning towards Disorder as like Shock or Burn or Corruption would be, which are more damage over time and then blowing them up. Yeah, so it's a little bit more niche, I think. But we could see that. We could see an ice anomaly. I think the only reason to feel like Ellen will be power crept very, very soon is that, is this Miyabi speculation. Like I said it earlier, he said it right there. It would be pretty cool if they rework Miyabi, or if I really want Miyabi to do something different. I think if Miyabi is literally just, I'm Ellen, but easier to play and stronger, that's really boring. You guys know, they've seen my Honkai stuff. I'm not a fan of Acheron or Firefly in that game. Like, they're obviously the best damage dealers, but I find them very basic. I'm not a fan. I'd be disappointed if Miyabi, and unfortunately that's my expectation, actually, to be fair, is that she would be something like that, because she's so popular, probably fairly easy to play, but very powerful.
Like. Do we have any...
I think it would be perfect. I think if they made her wind element, and this is like, ooh, new element come to the game, that would be sick. That would be mind-blowing. Super freaking cool. Yes. Awesome. Let's go. If she's just Ellen, but better, no one's happy with that, I think, except people who hate Ellen, I suppose.
4 stars hanging around the top of the tier list that were there on launch. We've got Ting Yun down here at tier 1, which is a great spot. We've got Pela, tier 1.5. Should probably be tier 1, but that's okay.
I think Pela should easily be tier 1. Yeah, for sure. Just because of Acheron, really. Mostly just because of Acheron. And even like Ting Yun has been falling off a decent chunk. Like, she's still good with Dan Heng, and she's okay with Jing Yuan, but then Robin is better. You know, I feel like Ting Yun has suffered a little bit in the recent modes, a little bit.
5, and then the rest are tier 2 and below. So not a terrible showing.
Like, Zila's still up there. I think Zila's actually a little bit underrated as well. Like, I think Zila's better than... I'm not sure, actually. Is this for MOC? I'm not sure. I know for Apocalyptic Shadow, like, actually Zila's competing pretty well. Like, I think for the top scores in Apocalyptic Shadow, like the boss mode, the new mode in the game, that Zila is up there with Dan Heng and Jing Liu. Like, they're pretty much all very similar performance with their best sort of teams. Of course, now they're quite a bit behind Boot Hill and Firefly and Acheron, mostly Boot Hill Firefly.
For
Also
Genshin,
Acheron,
I'm not going to show
yeah.
my
So
tier list right now because I'm about to release a new tier list in just a week and a half, so I don't want to spoil it. But there are a bunch of 1.0 4-stars, a couple at the very top, well, not one at the very top, and then a bunch more in sort of the tier 1 area, like quite a few, more than in Star Rail. But Star Rail definitely still has some good characters that are 4-stars in tier 1, tier 1.5. It's just that Genshin has a lot more. Genshin kind of released a certain power ceiling and then stuck to that ceiling for a decent amount of time, slowly increasing and introducing more and more powerful characters. No doubt, power creep has always been in Genshin. I'm just going to look at this tier list so I have something to look at. Oh my god, they've got Mona in S tier. Oh my god, that's insane. Holy, I can't even look at
I've never played Genshin, so I don't know. This is totally meaningless to me. That's very interesting, though, that Genshin is more balanced than Star Rail, basically, that older characters are relevant for longer. I didn't know that. I'll check out his tier list video. It probably won't make sense, though, because I've never played the game. Interesting.
I can't even look at this tier list. What is this? C2 Rising?
I think what happens with Star Rail is they release so many characters that there's actually quite noticeable power creep in the game. I think that's what happens with Star Rail, and like there's like totally new team comps, like if you follow-up teams, break teams, all of that, and if you don't pull, they actually release a lot of free characters as well, like Gallagher, Harmony, Trailblazer, the new March 7th looks sick as well. Like they do constantly release actually newer 4-star, but well, Harmony Trailblazer is technically 5-star, but you get the gist, right? You get the deal. They released a lot of newer characters, like A ranks basically, that are super good and help you build those teams. But then the new limited characters tend to be very, very powerful.
C1 Hutao in SS and Alhaitham in SS.
Not
what
always.
the heck is going on?
But often.
I need to make a video on this. Holy. But anyways, Genshin, for a while, they stuck to a
Oh,
certain
yeah,
power
hope.
ceiling, but they
That's
also released
clever.
lots of variety. So by the time, I wouldn't
Video
say we
list.
entered true power creep until Fontaine, whereas Star Rail, at least if you look at a tier list like this, we got one level of power creep during 1.0, another level of power creep during 2.0, like these are the SS characters in 1.0, like later on 1.0, and then the original characters, Zila and Jing Yuan, kind of lagging behind the other characters. And you can see even in the support, Luocha was power crept right away, and then power crept again. I think that this is a bit more of a contested play, putting Aventurine so much higher than Fushan and Huohuo. So what that tells you about ZZZ is that
dude, I'm telling you right now, Aventurine, he's on another level. I'm telling you right now. Aventurine is insane, man. Oh my god, he's so busted. Definitely the best sustain right now. Gallagher as well up there. Oh man,
might go wide, and they might go deep. And when I say wide, it's like, are they going to release lots of different types of characters, or are they going to release new and better characters that kind of fulfill the same role? And I think
it's interesting. Like I'm very curious how team building is going to go in this, because I like in Honkai, you've got 4 characters on a team. In this game, you only have 3, so you are much more limited in terms of the characters to use. So I'm very curious what they're gonna do. Very curious, I have to say.
think that there's a lot of different roles, because there's stun, support, DPS, and anomaly.
And again, also, yeah, he's mentioning the roles. In Star Rail, you've got what, 7 paths? Yeah, I think you got 7 paths at least. In this game, you only have 5 roles. You've got much fewer. So again, yeah, like it seems smaller teams, less roles, less elements as well compared to Star Rail. It seems much tougher in this game for characters to say. So I'm very curious what happens. You got factions, 5
different elements.
There's
and then
that.
they could introduce more elements. And I do think that they will introduce more elements. And I think that will delay the amount of characters that they release. It also depends on the release schedule. Genshin generally releases an average of 1 character per patch, and Star Rail does 2. I feel like Genshin that ZZZ is going to do 1 eventually, 1 new character per patch, because I think it'll probably take them more to develop. But then again, there's not as much like overworld stuff for the developers to focus on as there is in Genshin.
Yeah, I would say like I think the ZZZ characters are tougher to develop than the Honkai ones. I would say so. Like, yeah, I think so. I think that like you've got so many animations that need to be like I mean, the Honkai ones, they need to be really good as well, but you've got a much more limited set of animations. Like you got to have there's way more moves. I think the kits in ZZZ are just more complicated. There's so many different parts to it with all your different moves. You got to have animations for all of those and everything. I think it does seem more difficult to build a ZZZ character than a Honkai one, for sure. To me, seems it.
So maybe there will be 2 per patch, and that'll really depend. And that's kind of how I think that'll kind of determine how fast Ellen will be power crept, because twice the character roster will really accelerate the amount of overlap that there will be between characters. Rina, another character that's hard to say. I think it's somewhat unclear how good her buffs really are. Increases. Yeah,
like Rina's a great example, right? Where we're not in the end game yet. So penetration, that gets better. The higher level, the more defense they have, the better it is. So how good is Rina? It's like impossible to say right now because we're not max level. And we could be fighting even higher level enemies in the future where this could get better. So it's really tough to say. Now, I do think Rena will definitely be power creep. Again, she's only a standard. She's only a standard support, and certainly at lower levels. Like I said earlier, I don't think there's a massive difference clearly between her and Nicole and Sukaku, even Lucy. They're all really good. One is not obviously way better than the others. They're all fantastic and fairly interchangeable, honestly. That will probably become more clear as more time goes on and we get to max level. So we'll see. I do think Rena's got good potential because of this longer duration of shock and then 10% more electric damage as well as the res pen. I think she does have good future potential, especially for any anomaly teams, right? Obviously, any anomaly teams that are involving electric anomaly. So hey, if Grace gets power crept, that's sort of a benefit to Rena. But again, like we could also expect future limited supports that will boost anomaly eventually as well. So I don't know.
Duration of shock.
It's hard to say. Hard to say.
Damage by 10%,
sure.
and she's also a sub DPS. I think Rena, it's really hard to say, but I think she's definitely leaning towards lasting longer than not. I think especially given that her C1 is good and her weapon is good, maybe she has a chance of lasting a little bit longer. I'm gonna put her down here. Okay, so
I would put her in hard to say. Sukaku, what? No, there's no way. This is no way. Sukaku, I think, is also hard to say. Yeah, I talked about Sukaku earlier. My thoughts on Sukaku, again, great buffs for your team. Really good with ice teams in particular. So it's really that question of like, how soon will they add more ice characters? Like, will they add someone, an ice stun or ice defense that replaces Lycon? I don't know. That seems questionable. I think Sukaku is easier to replace, for sure. And I think actually maybe her greatest strength, like I said earlier, will be as your ice damage in a team that's not that mono ice team. Like, she is very good with that mono ice team, but she also could be really good, like I said, if you need to break an ice damage shield and you don't have another ice character, she can do it pretty well. She's got pretty good damage output and needs some on-field time. So she does have potential. Like, if you got more DPS in the future, like, she could be really strong actually with like an ice anomaly character. She could actually be really good. An ice anomaly character that maybe doesn't need to be on field all that much compared to like Ellen, who wants to be on field a lot. Like Sukaku can go in and just start beating them with the frosted banner. It's pretty cool. I 2 years plus. No, he's got to move her. There's no way. I'd be putting her, Rena, and Nicole. I would put them all into hard to say. Yeah, I put them all into hard to say. Yeah, I would.
That is an insane attack buff. Truly an insane character. Truly the Bennett of Zenless Zone Zero. Lucy gives an attack buff, but Sukaku's buff is essentially double. And I don't mean that it'll be actually
almost. Yeah, almost. Think Lucy's 600, Sukaku is 1000.
Forever, like sure. And again, tomorrow they could announce that a new ice buffer is coming out and they power creep Sukaku. But I just think that this character, more than any other, really has the chance of going the distance, reducing ice res by 10% as well. And I think the fact that Miyabi is likely going to be a strong pairing with her.
Yeah, so Miyabi is obviously in her same faction and potentially the same element. I mean, even if she's not the same, even if Miyabi is hypothetically Wind, they're still the same faction, so they will still go together in the same team potentially and be decent.
Is also really good. Yeah. Lucy. So I think people are kind of not as crazy about Lucy as me, and mostly because her attack buff is significantly smaller than Sukaku. And it's unclear how much like off-field damage she's really doing. She gives a pretty small 10% crit damage.
Yeah, it's actually quite hard to tell. It's actually it's part of why the game is still quite mysterious, I think. It's quite hard to tell exactly, like, to eyeball it, how much damage characters are doing. Because, like, I mean, if you look at, let's say, Ellen, for instance, you know, it's like there's a barrage of damage numbers. How much is actually happening? It's hard to add it. Like, if you want to add it up, watching the gameplay, it's basically impossible. You have to, like, pause it or check her multipliers in the stat screen or something. It's quite tough. So how much damage is Lucy doing? Yeah, it's a good question.
At C4 and does a bunch of fire damage at C6. But I also think that the 1.2 characters that are from this faction will probably use her as signature support. And I think that will give her some long-lasting value. So I'm actually going to put her in will last a while because I think that she's got some really solid synergies that you'll probably want to be using her on those teams. Maybe not.
Yeah, she could be very strong with the Sons of Caledon. But again, like I do not see enough difference for me right now. I'd be putting all of the supports in hard to say. Definitely. I definitely put them all in hard to say. I think there's not enough knowledge about the game yet to say for sure which ones are going to be best long term. And again, like you have to imagine limited supports. Again, I'm going back to Harmonies and Honkai Star Rail. At the start of the now Bronya obviously stood out at the start of the game, but look at like Ting Yun or even Pela is not harmony but nihility but similar, like a debuffer as opposed to a buffer. Great characters that are still relevant today, but like you compare them in general, like especially you compare like Ting Yun. Wow, could we ever imagine Ting Yun being replaced? And then there's Ron May and there's Robin and there's Sparkle, etc. It gets kind of rough. So yeah,
maybe she'll be instantly power crept, but that's kind of how I feel. For Piper, I think she's
like I said, like the most likely one. I mean, given that they're all hard to say, the most likely one to remain strong is actually Rena because she is an S rank. Like, assuming the developers have done their job right, assuming they are good at their jobs, the S rank character should be better than the A ranks, and should last for longer. But we'll see. Piper, I mean, if Jane Doe is physical anomaly, Piper's going to be power crept basically straight away. She could be power crept instantly as well.
Eventually, the reason I'm not putting her in power crept instantly is because maybe, like,
Okay.
yeah, Jane Doe is a physical anomaly that will probably just be better Piper. But what if you want to use
Yeah.
them together? I think that's a possibility. And that's why I'm not
Use them together. I think that's pretty unlikely. Like you build up assault radius, but like the more you build, when you build up an anomaly, the enemy gets anomaly resistance, and now there's obviously things you can do. There's like W engines and stuff you can use to reduce that, and the gear set I think helps as well. I think it's much more likely you'd run different. You run a different anomaly. Like I think it's very unlikely. Like I feel if Jane Doe is physical anomaly, I think she's very likely to hard power creep Piper pretty much. Now Piper's still great. She's a great option if you don't have Jane Doe. But if you got Jane Doe, I think you probably would not use Piper. I think she basically replaces her, and you'd run Jane Doe with Grace or Nekomata, or I don't know, just a couple of supports or something, or like support in a defense, something like that. Solo damage anomaly. I think it's unlikely you'd run two anomaly characters of the same anomaly together. You're just gonna build up all the resistance, and you can't, like, oftentimes you can't, like with shock for instance. I'm not sure 100% how physical works, but I think you just sort of refresh the physical does upfront damage, but like shock, if you reapply it, it just like refreshes the duration or whatever. Like it doesn't work, doesn't do more damage.
In just instantly power crept. I think Piper is one of the better teams right now, so you could even put in hard to say or will last for over a year, but I think I'm gonna put her in power crept eventually for now.
I think given that the speculation is that Jane Doe is physical anomaly, there's no way Piper. I think it's very, very unlikely.
For a while, being the first Ether character, I don't see us getting another Ether DPS for a while. The only reason why Ellen's up here is just because it's like we already played Miyabi and we know how good she is from the beta. And yeah, maybe they changed Miyabi, but like as is, this character is, I'm gonna put in hard to say because he's defense.
Yeah. Interesting, Zhu Yuan. I think she's going to be pretty similar to Ellen, honestly. I think pretty similar. Again, I think they're both hard to say as well. Ellen is purely because of Miyabi, right? Zhu Yuan, again, she's a fairly straightforward damage dealer. Very strong. The only ether one in the game. But, I mean, the same thing. Ellen's the only ice damage dealer in the game right now. So, yeah, Miyabi has potential to power creep Ellen. So I guess Zhu Yuan is more likely. If you were to bet either way, seeing as Miyabi has existed as an ice damage dealer, you'd have to say Ellen is more likely to be power crept. Okay, that is definitely fair. Zhu Yuan, I wouldn't expect to be like the best forever either. Again, any other ether anomaly or ether attack agent could contest her. I think they're both super good, and they're both way better than the current damage dealers. They're both great pulls. I honestly, I'd probably put them both in hard to say, with a slight edge, obviously, towards Zhu Yuan lasting longer. And actually, you know what? I definitely would say Zhu Yuan has probably more future potential, especially with how they changed her passive, where she can combo with any support agent. So, like I said, if they come out and they go, okay, well, now in whatever, this rotation of Shiyu defense or this new game mode, you're going to have to deal with lots of different elemental shields, which is a mechanic already in the game. Well, Zhu Yuan can go, oh, I need ether, but I also need ice. Well, great, I'll take a Sukaku. I just need a support agent. I don't care. I'll take Sukaku on my team. Great. I'm not relying on another ether agent. And now we can break ice, and I can break ether, and we're good. Whereas Ellen doesn't have that level of flexibility. You could run Ellen with Rena if you got Rena, both same faction, but it becomes a little bit more awkward.
We don't know. Like he does some breaking or some stunning. He's defense. It's like, I don't know. It's another one that's really hard to say. I don't exactly know where defense characters go in the game. And then
yeah, so he's looking to be a new defense character. It seems like he would combo very well. Like he seems like he's pretty well set up for this team, like the Jane Doe, Grace, Seth. If those are their things, because then you've got double electric, you've got double criminal investigation, so everyone is activated, all their passives. You've got the double anomaly for proccing disorder. Then you got defense character to hopefully stun the enemy, help you stay alive as well, because you're also not going to have so many stuns, so there's going to be a lot more boss attacks coming at you. So that seems to be where the roles are going right now to me in the early patches. I'm sure it will change drastically, but right now it seems like attack, stun, support, and then anomaly plus defense. They seem to be the sort of natural pairings. We'll see.
Doe, I'm gonna put in will last forever, because she essentially makes anomalies crit, and so she's gonna be like, she's literally Kafka, She's gonna enable.
Oh damn! As like she makes an if that's true, if she makes anomaly crit, absolutely. In fact, she'd be the only character I put in this will last forever category. Yeah, she would be. She would be. Yeah, that could be crazy. And like I said, I think the anomalies have more potential because, again, 2 anomalies on a team seems much more likely than 2 of any other role almost. So again, I've seen some double support stuff, and that's about it. So 2 anomaly, yeah, that has a lot of potential. And again, you'd probably want, if you're doing a disorder team, well, what happens? What happens if, let's say we've got flamethrower chick, if she ends up being fire anomaly? Yeah, what happens if they're weak to fire? Well, she's kind of rubbish. Then you'd really be wanting your Jane Doe and your Grace or whatever. Yeah, etc. So that's pretty powerful for her. I think the biggest downsides for her and Xing Yi, wherever Xing Yi's here, is that they're actually, unlike the Zhu Yuan and Ellen, who are unique, they're the only ice and ether attack characters. We already have electric stun, and we already have physical anomaly. So that's a downside of them. But that being said, I do think Jane Doe does have pretty good potential moving forwards into the future. So it's interesting. I think Jane Doe makes decent sense to pull if you got Ellen, whereas Zhu Yuan maybe incentivizes Xing Yi more, seeing as they're both the same faction and can synergize well. Yeah. Whereas for me, I've got Ellen and Grace, so I'm definitely eyeing up Jane Doe. If this ends up being true, yeah.
A much stronger short reaction. So I'm thinking
Miyabi, by the way, I'd be putting Miyabi. I think Miyabi be really strong. I think Miyabi is the Firefly. She's the Acheron of this game. She is the fan favorite. People freaking love her. She's super badass, super cool. I think that when she comes out, she's going to be busted. Like, if you were to bet right now about any character that they've teased so far from the intro cinematic as to which one would be the best, it's Miyabi all the way. Again, I really hope she's not Ice Attack, and with Power Creep Ellen, I think everybody loses just about in that scenario. I'd love for her to be Wind and be like a new element. That'd be so sick. Or to have some cool, funky thing going on in her kit. That'd be great. But yeah, I think she's going to be
Jane,
real
Grace
strong.
Piper. Maybe it's Jane Rena Piper. Maybe it's Jane Rena Grace as her best team off the hop. And I don't see her being powercraft even close. I'm not going to put Miyabi on here because, well, actually, apparently I am, because now I can't unput her. So I'm going to say she'll last. I'm going to put her here because she's going to come out later at some point. So surely she'll last. Surely she'll last a while. So this is what I think. We'll zoom out so you guys can get the full screenshot. It's going to be really interesting to see how well or how poorly this ages. Hopefully this gives you an idea on...
It's very interesting. Very interesting. Because, I mean, there's so much we don't know. This could all be wrong. It could all be wrong. Certainly, I think we've hit upon it here. Like I said, I'd have some differences, like basically moving the supports to hard to say, and I'd move Ellen up to hard to say. Other than that, it's pretty much bang on. I think it's pretty bang on with his recommendations here. Yeah, like Sukaku and Will Lasting Forever is my biggest question mark. And definitely, I think Jane and Miyabi are the two that definitely stand out to me for sure. I think Rena and Lycon from the standard S ranks, I should say, the standard banner, they stand out to me. So yeah, that's sort of how I feel about that. Yeah, cool. There we go, guys. Yeah, let me know. What do you think? Who has the better take, me or Jello? Let me know your hot takes in the comment section down below as well. And yeah, that's sort of how it's looking. That's how it's looking. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a bit of a different one. First time doing something like this on the channel. Pretty much. So yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.